Consequences and countermoves. Brian was having difficulty with his father, a wealthy man who had always used his money to control other people, even his family. He had taught his children to obey by threatening to cut off his financial support or cut them out of his will. As Brian got older, he wanted more freedom from his father, but he found himself addicted to the family money and the pleasures it afforded. He liked being able to take his wife on vacations to the family summer home. He liked the country club membership and tickets to Big Ten basketball games. But Brian didn't like what his father's control was costing him emotionally and spiritually. He decided to make some changes. He started saying no to some of his father's requests that were disruptive to him and his immediate family. He declined to go on some of the holiday trips when his children wanted to do other things. His father didn't like that. Predictably, he started to cut Brian off from the resources that he had access to. He used him as an example to the siblings. He began to lavish more privileges on Brian's brothers and sister to show Brian his mistake. Lastly, he changed his will. This was hard for Brian. He had to streamline his lifestyle and do without some of the things he was used to. He had to make different plans for the future, for he had always planned on inheriting his father's money. In short, he had to deal with the consequences of his choice to free himself from his father's control. But for the first time in his life, he was free. This scenario is common. It is not always a family fortune that is at stake, but it may be a parent's financial support for college, or it may be a mother's availability to be babysitter, or a father's help in business, or it may be a series as the loss of the relationship, or it may be as serious as the loss of a relationship. The consequences of setting boundaries will be countermoves by controlling people. They will react to your act of boundary setting. First, figure out what it is that you are getting for your lack of boundaries and what you stand to lose by setting boundaries. In Brian's case, it was money. For others, it may be a relationship. For people, some people are so controlling that if someone starts to stand up to them, they will not tolerate them anymore. Many people are cut off by the family they grew up in when they stop playing the family's dysfunctional games. Their parents or their friends will no longer speak to them. You face a risk in setting boundaries and gaining control of your life. In most instances, the results are not drastic. For as soon as the other person finds out that you are serious, they start to change. They find the limit setting to be something good for them. As Jesus says, you have won them. You rebuke the rebuke of a friend turns to be good medicine. Turns out to be good medicine. Good, honest people need discipline, and they respond, however rational, reluctantly to limits. Others have what psychologists call character disorders. They don't want to take responsibility for their own actions and lives. When their friends and spouses refuse to take responsibility for them, they move on. When you count the cost of the consequences, as difficult or as costly as they seem, they hardly compare to the loss of your very self. See Luke 9, verse 23 to 25. The message of the Bible is clear. Know the risk and prepare. Second, decide if you are willing to risk loss. Is the cross you must take up worth it to you for your very self? For some, the price is too high. They would rather continue to give in to the controlling parent or friend than to risk the relationship. Intervention, specialist caution the family to think hard about whether they are ready to enforce the consequences they agreed on if the alcoholic does not get treatment. Boundaries without consequences are not boundaries. You must decide if you are willing to enforce the consequences before you set the boundaries. Third, be diligent about making up for what you have lost. In Brian's case, we had to plan to find a way to make more money. Others may need to find new child care arrangements, make new friends, or learn to deal with loneliness. Fourth, do it. There is no way of dealing with the power moves of others and the consequences of our boundaries other than setting the boundaries and going through with your plan. When you have a plan, do like Peter. Get out of the boat and make your way towards Jesus. Fix your eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of your faith. Hebrews 12, verse 2. The first step will be the hardest. Go out and do it. You look for his help. Remember what the psalmist said. He trains my hands for battle. My arms can bend a bow of bronze. Psalms 18, verse 34. Fifth, realize that the hard part is just beginning. Setting the limit is not the end of the battle. It is the beginning. Now is the time to go back to your support group and use them to spiritually nourish you so that you will be able to keep your stand. Keep working the program that got you ready to set your boundaries. Countermoves to your boundary setting are tough to battle, but God will be there to match your efforts as you work out your salvation. Physical resistance. It is sad that we have to include this section, but some people can't maintain their boundaries with another person because they are physically overpowered. Abusive spouses or romantic partners will not take no for an answer. Other women who try to set limits are physically abused. Elder abuse is all too common. These abused individuals need help. They are often afraid to tell anyone about what has happened or what is continuing to happen. For many reasons, they are trying to protect their spouse's reputation with friends or the church. They are afraid to admit that they always allow this treatment. They are often afraid that they will get beaten worse if they tell. They must realize the seriousness of the problem and get outside help. The problem will not go away, and it could get a lot worse. If you are in this situation, find other people to help you set limits on the abuse. Find a counselor who has dealt with abusive spouses before. Arrange to call people in your church if your spouse or friend gets violent. Arrange for a place to stay overnight if you are threatened, no matter what the hour. Call the police and an attorney. Get a restraining order on such an individual if he will respect no other limit. Do it for yourself and for your children. Do not allow this to go on. Seek help.